What's next for the Boston Celtics? Their season is now over. They lost in 5 games in the first round of Brooklyn Nets, and it was certainly a disappointing year for Boston. In this video, we're going to be taking a look back at their season, at what they could potentially be doing this offseason, how they can adjust this roster around some of the top-tier talent that they do have. It was a weird year, but you can't deny the talent of Jayson Tatum and Jaylen Brown on the wings. How are they going to be able to maneuver this roster and change some things up to have a much better season next year? This is a team that has gotten used to making deep playoff runs, going to 3 out of the last 4 Eastern Conference Finals prior to this season, and all of those are what we're going to be talking about in today's video. Quickly, before we get started, if you're new here, what's up? My name is Tucker. I upload NBA stuff on this channel every single day. It's the most consistent NBA content on YouTube. If that's something that you're looking forward to, then consider subscribing, leave a like rating on the video as well if you're enjoying it. And if you want to hang out with me outside of these videos, you can check out the various socials and a Linktree link down in the description below. With those things said, let's take a look back at the Celtics season. So first, let's talk about some positives for Boston. I think there's a lot of negative feelings around this team right now, but there certainly were some positive things for this team this year. Jayson Tatum and Jaylen Brown being the primary ones. They were incredible. They had fantastic seasons, all-star caliber seasons, despite some ups and downs with some injury stuff with Brown at the end of the year and Tatum with some protocol stuff at the beginning of the year. You're very, very confident about the development of those two players. They're signed to the team long-term. They're clearly the focal point of this group moving forward. There also were some glimpses from some of the younger guys. Peyton Pritchard had some moments. Romeo Langford in this postseason series, specifically against Brooklyn, had some cool moments. Rob Williams, same thing, whether it be throughout the year or in the very beginning prior to getting hurt of this Brooklyn series, was good as well. And Nesmith, towards the end of the year, started to get some more minutes and started to look more and more competent. There were some glimpses and some flashes from various guys, and they're going to need that because one of their bigger issues is they just don't have guys you can count on around Tatum and Brown. So if they can start to get some development out of those couple of players, they're going to be in a pretty good spot. In terms of positives, though, that's kind of the end of the list. It was certainly a disappointing season for Boston. I came into the year thinking this is going to be a team that's going to be top 3, top 4 in the East. Despite the loss of Gordon Hayward, they still had the talent of Brown and Tatum, Kemba Walker being there as well. They played well in the bubble last year. I thought all that stuff was going to carry over. I still believe in Brad Stevens as a coach. They were going to figure out a way to make it work defensively, and it just didn't work out like that. Some of the guys they brought in, like Tristan Thompson, were positives, but they never were able to figure out the defensive stuff, and they just could not figure out a way to get impactful players on the floor around Brown and Tatum. And for a good part of the year, Kemba Walker was just an inconsistent presence for this team, whether it be because of his injuries or certainly because of his performance as well, even when he was on the court. They couldn't figure out how to get guys to make shots off the ball and defend on the other end and do some occasional playmaking. It all fell on Brown and Tatum. And there's a lot of parallels between this team and the Clippers, where it's increasingly difficult to create a free-flowing, high-level NBA offense around two wings that aren't fantastic playmakers. They're fine playmakers, but they're not on the level of guys like LeBron and guys like Luka, these bigger wings that we're seeing start to kind of dominate on the perimeter in the NBA. These two guys, Brown and Tatum, are much more scoring-focused players, and they're fantastic two-way players when they're locked in and they're engaged, but they just don't create that level of flow that you really need for a top-level NBA offense, and they struggled at times offensively as a result, and that's one of the reasons they brought in Kemba Walker, and he just did not have a good season. He's supposed to be that playmaking guy alongside them, and just a lot of things kind of fell apart around this group, and despite the brilliance of Brown and Tatum, it certainly was not the season that they or Boston fans expected, and so we're going into certainly an off-season of uncertainty here for the Celtics. As we look now at the Celtics offseason, there are 2 things we know. 1, Jaylen Brown is staying. 2, Jayson Tatum is staying. Other than that, there's a lot of things up in the air here. I would be shocked if either of those guys end up getting moved. They're signed long-term. They're young. They're clearly the core of this franchise. Despite some of the difficulties you can see potentially offensively with trying to build your offense around 2 high-level wings, there are ways that you can make that work with other personnel, and I think it's more so a personnel issue outside of those 2 guys than any kind of major adjustment they need to make with those 2 players. They need to focus on building their team up around those guys. Now, how do they do that? Well, it's certainly going to be difficult. When you look at the roster, you can really see why they struggled so much on both ends of the court. There just aren't a lot of impact players out there, especially if Kemba is not going to be healthy. The Kemba thing is going to be the first place that people are going to look, and they're going to say, hey, maybe we should take a look at trading this guy, see what we can get for him. They certainly explored that option last offseason as well. I just don't think that's a realistic option. I don't think anybody's trading for Kemba Walker on a $36 million deal for this upcoming season and $37 the following. There are guys you can trade him for, but none of them would be all that exciting, and they're all going to be guys that are in a similar situation to where Kemba is right now. It would very much be a Russell Westbrook for John Wall type swap here for Boston, where you're trading a guy in Kemba that is overpaid, not performing well, and injury-riddled for another guy that is overpaid, not playing well, and injury-riddled. One of the names that continues to be thrown around, depending on how Dallas's season ends, would be Kristaps Porzingis in exchange for Kemba Walker, potentially some assets on either side. It's not a bad option, but it's not one that's incredibly exciting either. So if you're a Boston fan that's looking at this team and thinking, let's trade Kemba Walker, we'll retool the group, it's incredibly difficult to move someone like him when he's just not playing well, when he's hurt constantly, and he's on as big of a number as he is. And I would prepare yourself to have Kemba Walker on this team again next year. Even though it seems like that would be an avenue to try and improve the team, I don't think it's a realistic one unless it is one of those kind of lateral moves where you're hoping the guy you're trading for is less beat up than the guy that you're trading away. Apart from that, free agency, not really an option here. They're at $134 million in payroll for this upcoming season already because of some extensions that are kicking in for guys like Tatum and Brown, and there's just not a lot of wiggle room there for them. They're unlikely to be able to shed any kind of significant salary. There aren't any player options really that they could move here. They're kind of locked in terms of free agency. They'll have some minor exceptions and things like that, but they're really not going to be able to build a ton in free agency, which brings us back to the trade stuff, but outside of Kemba Walker. And the name for me that comes up here as you look at this roster is really the only chess piece on the board for Boston is Marcus Smart. I know that Boston fans love Marcus Smart. I know that Celtics fans really feel like he's a critical part of their team, and at times he certainly is. But if you're just looking strictly from a roster building perspective, he's on a tradable contract. He's a guy that other teams would be interested in. And if you're looking for a higher level playmaking presence, I think you could start to build a package around Marcus Smart, the 16th pick in this draft, and maybe some young guys, and you can go out and get a player that would certainly be an upgrade for this roster on the offensive end of the floor. I don't know who that guy would be. I don't know which team out there is trading for Marcus Smart, but strictly from a general sense, when you look at this roster, when you look at the payroll sheet, he's the guy. He's the guy that they have to move if they want to make a significant change to this roster, unless you count trading the 16th pick and some young guys as a significant change for this group. It's really difficult for me right now to speculate who that player would be that they would be trading for and where Marcus Smart would go, but I would not be surprised at all to see a Marcus Smart trade this offseason. And ultimately, as you're looking at this payroll sheet, as you're looking at their trade options, you're starting to understand why it's so difficult for Boston to improve. They've got some bigger contracts. Guys like Kemba, Brown, and Tatum, those are supposed to be the players they're building around, and one of them is just not performing the way that they need them to. And then the other guys on the roster are either on rookie deals, they're on veteran deals like Tristan Thompson. It's not like he has a ton of trade value. And then Marcus Smart is the one guy in the middle here. He's been in trade discussions for years, and I think this might be the offseason in which they finally make that move. I give Boston credit for trying to make adjustments to this roster. They tried to get Jeremy Grant. They tried to get Nikola Vucevic. They tried to get Aaron Gordon. None of those moves have panned out, and now they're looking at a situation where improvement in a significant way back towards the top tier of the Eastern Conference is incredibly difficult. So if you're a Celtics fan and you're looking towards this offseason, you're thinking, how can we improve this roster? There's two options. One, you can just count on internal improvement from guys like Brown and Tatum that are still very young, by the way, and can still improve significantly in the areas of playmaking and in being a little bit more efficient with their shot selection. You can count on younger guys like Rob Williams to improve and become impact players around Brown and Tatum, and hopefully you have a healthier season next year with Jaylen coming back. Maybe Kemba has a healthier season, and without all the protocol stuff interfering with kind of trying to build the chemistry of this group. That internal improvement is enough to make you a top 5, a top 4 team in the Eastern Conference again next year. And then you count on the individual talent you're bringing to the table to provide you the success that you're looking for in the postseason. The other option would be trading Marcus Smart, trying to find a perimeter playmaker that adds to the flow of this offense. It's Kemba, it's that guy, it's Brown, it's Tatum. You figure out the center position, whether it's Tristan Thompson or otherwise, and then you go from there. Those are pretty much your only two options. I don't foresee any kind of significant teardown or rebuild. Brown and Tatum are staying, and you're just going to try and kind of maneuver the pieces and see if you can press the right buttons if you're Boston, because as long as you have Brown and Tatum on the roster for the next couple of seasons, you're going to be fine. Are you going to be a championship level group? That remains to be seen. But for Boston right now, the goal is probably just to see how they can shuffle things around, wait out the Kemba Walker contract, and then go from there. In terms of the outlook for Boston, I've kind of outlined it already. It's not fantastic, but it's not bad either. The problem is they're probably going to end up being stuck somewhere in the middle in the Eastern Conference, somewhere between that 4-5 to 7-8 range, depending on health, depending on individual performances throughout the season. And that's kind of a scary place to be if you're an NBA fan. I've been there plenty of times as a Nets fan, and plenty of other franchises can attest to this as well, where it doesn't feel like there's a significant avenue to improve, to become a championship level team, but there's enough talent on the roster to where you can't ever bottom out. And short of a fantastic trade made by Danny Ainge, it's going to be difficult to foresee significant roster changes in a way that makes them a championship level group in this offseason specifically. Moving forward, maybe there's a diamond in the rough in this roster. Maybe Aaron Naismith becomes a really good two-way wing for them. They can play Brown and Tatum up a couple of positions and play a little bit smaller. They get a nice 5-man in this draft with the 16th pick, and then they go forward from there. I wouldn't put it past Boston at all. They certainly know how to develop players, but ultimately, my expectation for them is that they're going to bring back mostly the same group next year, hope for a little bit better health. Maybe they're exploring a Marcus Smart trade, and then they go forward from there and just try and be a good team next year. I don't really think they have any other options until they get rid of the Kemba Walker thing. It's just very, very difficult for them to maneuver their personnel in a significant way. Let me know down in the comment section below what you guys would do with this Boston team. Do you think that there's a significant amount of upside here? Are you kind of on the same page with me? Do you think they're kind of stuck in the middle? Let me know down in the comment section below what you think should be next for the Boston Celtics. And that is going to be the end of today's video, and I thank you guys very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, leave a like rating on the video. Check out more videos from me at the boxes on screen. And again, if you want to hang out with me outside of these videos, check out the various socials on Linktree link down in the description below. With all those things said, I hope you guys have an awesome rest of your day, and I will see you all next time.